the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, July 16th. Hopefully, you guys are having a good week and everything's going well. Yeah, let's just jump right in to the news. We talked about this. We've talked about this the last couple of days, but things are definitely heating up in Syria. So let's take a little bit of a step back, and I'll give you a little bit of the background and what is going on here, and then bring you up to date on what is happening right now. But you might have seen Israeli airplanes bombing significant places in Damascus, in the capital of Syria. So clearly dramatic escalation happening between Israel and Syria. Now there are two things that we need to cover. We need to cover both the situation, the Jews, the kind of the history of the Jews, who they are, what they are, and why they are at the center of all this. And then we should say something about what's happened in Syria and who the current government in Syria is, and then try to connect it all. So let's start with the Jews. The Jews are a minority, ethnic group, religion, I guess. You could call them a religion, really, ethnically. They're very insular, so they marry within, but they are, part of the Middle East. They're Arab in origin. They are a particular sect of Islam, although the specific religion and religious teachings are secretive. They have their own religious leaders. They don't follow Shiite Islam. They don't follow Sunni Islam. And they have been a significant, I guess, religious minority within the Middle East for hundreds of years, for 1,000 years. The Jews are primarily located in Lebanon, where I think the largest population of Jews is, Israel, particularly in the northern Israel, in Haifa, and near Haifa. There are two big Jewish villages near Haifa, and in Syria, in southwest Syria, in that area of Syria, which borders both Israel, and then if you move a little bit up north, also borders Lebanon. Over the centuries, they have been persecuted by the majority Muslim populations around them, but they have survived. They are known as pretty ferocious warriors. In the Lebanese civil war, they sometimes were on the side of the Christians, sometimes they're on the side of the Sunnis. The Sunni Muslims, sometimes even they aligned themselves with the Shiites. They switched alliances constantly during the Lebanese Civil War in an effort to preserve, in an effort to survive, right? To survive given the horrific politics and bloodshed that was going on in Syria. They have been, generally positive towards Israel, primarily because in Israel, the Jews are treated very much as equal citizens. And, for example, the Jews are the only Arabs where the entire male population basically joins the Israeli army and serves in the Israeli army from age 18. I had Jews in my basic training, and they are because they are serving the army, they're even more equal, I'd say. They're closer to being equal than any of the other Arabs within Israel, although Israel, again, tries to have equal rights before the law. The Jews, Israel has a particular soft spot for them, if you will, because they do serve in the military. They do fight. Jews have fallen pretty much every Israeli war that I can remember, Jews have died defending Israel. So, the Jews are quite integrated into the Israeli culture. Again, the two villages near Haifa that are very large Jewish villages. We used to go there as teenagers and family, eat at restaurants there, the good food. So the Jewish population is a population with Israel. Now, when Israel took the Golan Heights in the 1967 war, which is a long time ago now, the Jews in the Golan Heights, there was a large population of Jews in the Golan Heights, were given the option of becoming, at some point, were given an option of becoming Israeli citizens. And many of them did. They, before that, held Syrian citizenship. So there is a large Jewish population in the Golan Heights bordering Syria, in addition to the large Jewish population in the Haifa area. So the Jews are this minority. They are hated by fundamentalists. It doesn't really matter if you're Shia or Sunni. They're hated by fundamentalists. I think Bashar al-Assad and his father, so the Assad family, who were the dictators of Syria from the 1960s until recently, they, because they were dominantly secular, they didn't, even though they ruled very much through the power and the influence and the favor of their sect was the Alawites. Alawites are particular sects of Shiite Islam. They weren't they didn't care about religion. That is, Christians in Syria were fine, relatively speaking. There was an intellectual class in Syria that was relatively atheistic, from which I think the Assads actually came. There were Sunnis, there were Shiites, and there were Jews, and the Jews were not persecuted, particularly under the Assad, the two Assad, the father and son regimes. But Bashar al-Assad was deposed earlier this year by the current regime in Syria. Now, the current ruler, the current president, Jalali, I think his name is, in Syria, is Ahmad el-Shara. He used to be part of ISIS. President of Syria used to be part of ISIS. He left. He had a splinter group that left. He says he's now much more moderate, but at the same time, he is a fundamentalist. He's very much a fundamentalist. And even if you believe him, and I don't know why anybody should believe him, but even if you believe him, that he is significantly moderated and today is a lot more, quote, tolerant of other religions and other sects within Islam, it's not clear that his men are. That is, the men who ultimately had this big victory over Assad's army and took the whole of Syria and won. His men are still driven by the same fundamentalist, Islamist ideology that drove ISIS. So, and remember ISIS, one of their big things was ISIS was Sunni Islamists, and they were quite happy to kill Shiites, to kill anybody that was not pure Sunni Islamists. They killed Christians, they killed other minorities, they killed Kurds, and the Jews do not feel safe given these people are running the country. Now, the people associated with this president and this regime in Syria, right, have also committed massive massacres of Alawites. Alawites are the Shiite Muslims affiliated with the Assad family, but it's a big group, religious group within Syria, and they've committed major massacres, killing hundreds, probably thousands of Alawites in kind of retribution for the Assad regime. But we're talking about men, women, children, the elderly, massacres. Curiously, no campus demonstrations, no calls for genocide, no UN commissions to evaluate. Indeed, and Donald Trump very friendly to this regime in Syria. And so one of the things that's happened since this regime has taken over Syria, if you remember, this happened in the very early days of the regime, Israel basically went on a bombing campaign and basically destroyed all the weapons they could that Assad had accumulated. Any kind of ground-to-air missiles, any kind of, I think, ground-to-ground missiles, heavy artillery, a lot of tanks, the entire Air Force would, they took out everything they could. Some tanks are still there and some heavy equipment is still there, but they took out all the basic, all the major weapon systems. There was also fear of chemical weapons that the Assad regime had, and they tried to take out that. They tried to take out everything that they were afraid this regime could use against them and try to make it so this regime would be militarily as weak as possible. Enough arms to be able to deal with ISIS or Al-Qaeda or something like that, or struggles within, but not enough arms to threaten Israel in any way. At the same time, Israel also went into Syria and occupied parts of it. They occupied a strategic location on the Golan Heights that gave them the ability to observe and gain intelligence much more clearly about what was going on inside Syria. So they held kind of the high ground. The Golan Heights are the highest mountain. Har Hermon. The Hermon mountain is the highest mountain in the area, and they could observe from there everything that was going on in Syria, listen in, use whatever technology they have to spy on the Syrians. They also put troops into Syria in areas adjacent to the Israeli border with Syria, and also up close to the Syrian-Lebanese border to make sure that Hezbollah was not rearmed across that border. One of the things Israel committed to as well is to protect the Druze population that is close to the Israeli border in the south of Israel. Israel views that Druze population as a strategic buffer between it and the new Syrian regime forces. It considered the Druze there to be a powerful ally in keeping the Syrians away. And while I think the Druze who are there were loyal to Assad, they are not loyal to this new regime. They are very afraid that this new regime is going to come in and slaughter them. And indeed, that's what was starting to happen late last week and during the weekend. Forces from the regime were coming into Jewish villages and massacring the people. Again, women, children, men, old people, anything they could get their hand off, they were killing. And at least 250 people were killed. As the Jews put it, they were doing October 7th to them this last weekend. As a consequence, Israel basically told the Syrians to get out of there, to leave the Jews alone, or Israel would intervene. Israel since then has been bombing tanks on their way there. They've been bombing heavy equipment moving into the region. They've been. I know they have special forces on the ground. They have troops on the ground. In other words, the Israelis are trying to help the Druze to the extent that they can without a full-on invasion of Syria with tanks and everything. They're trying to help the Druze beat back the Syrian forces. Yesterday, Trump told them to stand down, and there was a moment where it seemed like Israel was standing down and was stopping the bombing. But the Syrians did not stand down. The Syrians intensified their attacks against the Druze villages. And Israel now has intensified its defense of those Druze villages, including now bombing the defense ministry in Damascus. Maybe there are rumors that the head of the Syrian military, the chief of defense or whatever they call it, the minister of defense, has been killed in that bombing. Bombing other sites in Damascus, as well as bombing again Syrian troops on the ground. So Israel has told the Syrian regime that if they don't stop what they are doing to the Jews, the regime is over. They basically said, you will not exist. The regime will be finished. So that is on the table right now, and it is going to be interesting. As the defense secretary yesterday said, Israel will not abandon the Jews in Syria and will enforce the disarmament policy we have decided upon. The IDF will continue attack regime forces until they withdraw from the area and will soon raise the level of response against the regime if the message is not understood. And I think that was before they bombed the Ministry of Defense. That was part of the raising. But just an hour or so ago, literally there was a statement saying that they would end the regime if they didn't stop doing this. So that's where we are now. The complication to this, add to this, the fact that the Jews in Israel and in the Golan Heights are really pissed off, and they are basically trying to cross the border into Syria with weapons to go and defend their tribesmen, the people in their tribe. So they are trying to pour across the border into Syria, and Israel's basically saying, "Don't go. It's going to be a disaster if you go. Some of you are going to get killed. You could get kidnapped, and now you'd be Israeli citizens kidnapped." Hostages in Syria. We've got our hands full with hostages in Gaza. We don't need hostages in Syria. Let the Israeli military deal with this. They know what they're doing. And yet, these people are passionate and insistent, and they're trying to, I saw pictures of thousands of them trying to break down the fence between Israel and Syria and cross the border and enter into a battle. And of course, they are angry because they claim Israel's not doing enough to protect their fellow tribespeople. And Israel, again, feels obligated to help them because they are Israel allies, and Israel thinks strategically the Jews in Syria could be long-term allies and could really be a buffer between them and another regime. Here's exactly what Israel passed, a message is passed on to al-Julani. Al-Julani, quote, "Your regime will fall within hours unless you cease the massacre against the Jews and withdraw." So how to tell exactly what's going to happen? The Trump administration wants Israel to stop because the Trump administration has decided that al-Julani is a good guy and they want peace. And remember, Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. And they want the Abraham Accords and everything like that. And Israel's like going, can't have Abraham Accords with people who are killing the Jews, and we have no guarantees don't want to kill us. So Israel's not going to back down, I think, on this. But clearly, the Trump administration, they don't want this. This is not consistent with kind of their view of the Middle East right now. And what is happening. I mean, from everything I'm reading, what these Syrian jihadis, Islamists are doing to the Jews is truly horrific. Remember what ISIS did to people? They are raping, they are slaughtering, they are killing. It's the same as Hamas. It's the same mentality. It's the same hatred. It's the same religious fervor that is driving them. This is the enemy. I mean, they continue to be the enemy of civilization. Islamists everywhere in the world are the enemy of civilization. They need to be destroyed. Israel cannot sign a peace deal with an Islamist country. And the whole idea of Israel signing a peace deal with this regime seemed weird to me from the beginning. But this regime, I think, is trying to test the Israelis, how far they'll go to defend the Jews. And it's going to be interesting to see how far Israel goes to defend the Jews. I wouldn't be surprised if we see tanks on the ground and Israeli tanks and Israel basically in a sense, annexing the whole southwest of Syria and making it a safe zone for the Jewish community. Ultimately, I think what the Jews have wanted and have talked about wanting is an autonomous state in that part of Syria for the Jews. So to split off from the Syrian regime and establish their own state, that should be what the civilized world wants. But the civilized world doesn't care. I mean, here's the point. I mean, you don't read about this much in the media. I mean, a little bit now because and what is the media's spin on this? There go the Israelis again getting into wars. There they go bombing another capital city in the Arab world. There they go starting a new war, right? It's Netanyahu again. It's Netanyahu. It's politics. Do they talk about the massacre? No. Because there are no good guys and bad guys. So you see, when Arabs are killing Arabs, there are no bad guys, and there are no good guys. Right? It's just the media doesn't know what to do with it because there's no obvious oppressor and oppressed. When Israel is fighting anybody over there, well, the Israelis are European or deemed that way. They're not. Half of them are not. The Israelis are civilized. The Israelis are rich. The Israelis are part of Western civilization. Oh, well, the Israelis must be the bad guys. Must be the bad guys. And they're beating up on these foreigners who were colonized once and who've never had their own state or have a state, but you know, the world doesn't like them and they have a different color skin, so they must be the good guys. They are poor, they're unsuccessful. So Israel is clearly a bad guy based on the color of the skin of less than 50% of the population, based on their success, based on their wealth, based on the fact that they're civilized. They are by definition the bad guys. And the Arabs are by definition the good guys. Now, what happens when the Arabs are killing Arabs? They don't know. They have no idea what to do with it. It's why you don't see any reporting about violence in Africa. It's like, I mean, Africa is incredibly violent. They're constant massacres. I mean, talk about genocides. I mean, other than Rwanda, what happened in Rwanda, over a decade ago, you almost never hear about the constant tribal and religious violence in Africa. You know, Muslims killing Christians daily in Nigeria, on scale, hundreds and hundreds of them. You don't hear Candace Owen talking about the world doesn't care about Christians, because it's blacks killing blacks. It's third world people killing third world people. And you don't care, you don't hear about what's happening in, Somalia or Sudan. There's a massive civil war in Sudan. You wouldn't know because it's Arabs killing Arabs. We don't know who the good guys and who the bad guys are. And it's not even religion. They could be killing Christians. I mean, how many of these people were upset when ISIS was killing Christians in Iraq? Or when this regime, this Syrian regime, has been killing Christians in Syria? They don't care. They don't care. I mean, Candace Owen keeps attacking Israel for going after Christians somehow. I don't know where exactly they get this nonsense from, but somehow Israel is bad for Christianity, but what Muslims are doing, or what they're doing to each other, they don't care. So UN is silent about what's going on to the Jews. The media is silent. You barely hear anything. Where's Francesca Albanese, who wrote that horrible, horrible, horrible report on Israel committing genocide in Gaza? Where's she? Well, it's not even, you could say, somebody says no Jews, no news. And there's an element of that. But it's not even no Jews. It's no Westerners, no civilized, and therefore no news. It's from their perspective, not mine, their perspective, barbarians killing each other. And they don't know how to categorize that in the intersectionality matrix, and therefore they cannot define who the good guys and who the bad guys are. So Assad says, Jewish students in Israel have the highest Bagut grades. Those are high school grades. When you finish high school in Israel, you take Bagrut exams. These are final exams, matriculation exams, and you get a Bagrut score, which is the average of your class and the exam that you took. And he says, I have no way to verify this, but he says on my chat, they have the highest Bagrut grades averages among Arabs. Oh, among Arabs. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. They're diligent, they're hardworking. I mean, we had, and again, if you live in Haifa, most people in Haifa have constant, access and they either have employees or employers who are Jews. There's constant contact between the populations. Anyway, so that's what's going on. We'll see what happens. There's very little risk here for the Israeli civilian population. This is all happening fairly far away. It's also the case that this Syrian regime, because of what Israel did at the beginning of their takeover, this new regime has very few weapons or any weapons that can really project into Israel, and I don't think they want to do it. They don't want to go there. So Israeli civilian population has nothing to fear here. It's not like Iran or even Hezbollah. There are no missiles, there are no ballistic missiles coming in, or probably none. Who knows? They might have some buried in the desert somewhere. The main issue here is to protect the Israeli Jews, make sure that they don't get hurt participating in these battles, and that none of them get kidnapped, none of them are taken hostage, and that Israel can stop this regime. And hopefully, I still think the best solution here is indeed to create some kind of autonomous state, Jewish state, on the Israeli, Jordanian, and Lebanese borders that is run autonomously. Now you hear a lot of stuff in the media about the Jews, being drug runners and being criminals, and look, that's certainly possible that some of them are. I know the Jordanians are complaining, but most of the complaints are against not against the Jews, against the Bedouin. But it's quite possible that there is organized crime over there. Again, there's kind of an anarchy which breeds organized crime, shockingly. But I really wouldn't take those claims too seriously. And from Israel's perspective, what's important here is not, they're drug running. Who cares? What's important to them is security, is securing their northern border. All right. By the way, if you want to ask me a question about any topic, don't do it in the chat, because I don't, for the most part, interact with the chat, or at least I try not to. The best way to do that is in the super chat. You can ask a question for $1.99, so it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money, although $50 questions are very, very much appreciated. $20 questions are very, very much appreciated. But you can ask a question for any amount, but I do want to focus all the questions in the super chat. Otherwise, it's not fair for the people who put money behind their questions. Don't forget, we do have targets. We do have a target for the first hour, which is $250, and we have $250 for every hour. My shows almost never go less than an hour and a half, and typically they go 2 hours and even a little bit longer. So if you're interested in supporting the show, please use a sticker or use a super chat. And if you're interested in asking a question, any question, making a comment that I read out aloud, please use the super chat to do that. Super chat is easy to use. It's a $sign at the bottom of your screen. All right, let's move from Syria-Israel to Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. This is quite a story, and it keeps getting juicier in the sense that I don't know what's real, right? I don't have any inside information I don't know if there's a list. I don't know if there's a black book. I don't know how deeply Trump is mentioned in the black book. I don't know how deep his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was. I have no idea. All I can say is this. The level of defensiveness that Trump is exhibiting, his willingness to attack his own base, to basically say, you know, I've lost them. They're all bought into a hoax. They're all supporting Democrats. They're all this. Makes him look guilty. Makes him look very, very guilty. I mean, he's basically calling MAGA stupid. And now he doesn't have to run for election again, but he might need MAGA for the midterm elections, but he's seriously alienating big chunks of them. So, for example, he said today, they want to talk about Epstein, the Epstein hoax. It's a hoax now. And the sad part, it is people that are doing Democrats' work. They are stupid people. He just called basically MAGA stupid on television. So, I mean, and he keeps coming out with these long, tweets on social, on Truth Social, denouncing his own supporters around this. And it really does look like he is listed there, and his association with Epstein somehow has, it makes it seem like he has a real association with Epstein in the file. He's claiming that the Democrats created the Epstein file to make him, Trump, look bad, and that what his base is doing is being useful idiots for the Democrats' goal. But of course, he was part of that. He promised to release the Epstein files. He's part of it. He appointed Bondi and the two guys at the FBI who all staked a claim on the Epstein file. So he ran a campaign on the Epstein file. If this is a file that the Democrats created out of nothing, why did he make a big deal out of it originally? Why did these people do? And it makes sense that if now they've discovered he's in it, they don't want to release it. But the whole thing is just weird. And again, I have no idea. I mean, the whole thing seems weird to me because, I mean, if the Democrats had something on Trump, something big on Trump, and Trump's relationship to Epstein, why didn't they release it before the election? Why didn't Biden release it? And Trump keeps saying it was Obama. Why didn't Obama release it? This is after Obama. But why didn't Biden release it? Now, the Trump administration did release a video of what happened in the jail cell when Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. And originally they said, there's a minute missing. Don't worry about it. There's a minute missing from every video that they take. It's when they switch tapes or something happens, and it's just a regular minute missing in all videos. So people said, well, can you release other videos where the minute is missing at the same timestamp? And of course they couldn't. And then they released the video of the Jeffrey Epstein thing, and it's not a missing minute. It's like 2 minutes and 20 seconds missing. I mean, these people are, I know some of you get mad when I say this. These people are stupid. They are stupid. I mean, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, these are not smart people. So they think somehow if they lie, they change reality by the lie. And they're not going to get caught when they actually release the video. It's just a minute. No, it's 2 minutes and 2. And I think it's the most likely scenario is that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. But by releasing a video with 2 minutes and 20 seconds missing and then lying about it, you look guilty. You look like you're hiding something. So to the extent that these people are, trying to hide something, they're doing a pretty bad job of it, because for months they've been saying, we're going to release it, and then suddenly, oh, we discovered there is no file. There's nothing to release. Well, that comes across as stupid. Is that the best you have? And if there's nothing there, if there really is no file, then again, they're coming off as stupid. Because then why all this defensiveness? Why not release what you have? There's so many ways in which you could do this that does not make you look guilty. But look, right now, not knowing anything about this, Trump looks unbelievably guilty. Now, I find it hard to believe he is, because I think Biden would have used it. But, maybe Biden didn't have the dirt. Maybe Kash Patel found the dirt and now regrets it and doesn't know where to bury it. The whole thing, it's like really, really bad planning. I mean, it's an idiot in charge, an idiot minions, and it's an idiotic administration. It really, really, really is. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. Because they're stupid, they're doing it. They're doing it because they promised MAGA that they will release the files, and they didn't really know what was in the files, and Trump he says anything. So the relation between what he says and truth and reality there is no relationship. So he just said it because that's what MAGA wanted him to say. And then when the guy went into the FBI and actually saw what was in the files, and when Pam Bondi actually read the file, she realized, oh, shit. I guess, I don't know, but that's my point. No matter what the reason is, they're doing about the worst job in the world communicating it. And Trump is making it look like he's guilty in this of association with Epstein. But, we know very little. We know very little about actually what Epstein did, and actually what happened on the island, and actually what happened in the different homes. We know very little about the concretes. Most of the court cases, we know very little about. The court cases have been sealed, and there's been settlements. So we know very little about all of it. What should they do now? Of course, there's a file. Everybody knows there's a file. I mean, it's not that there isn't a file. They're not even denying that there's a file. Trump is now saying it's a file created by Biden to make him look bad. So he's not denying there's a file. I don't know. They got into a mess. But of course there's a file. Nobody is saying there's no file. I mean, there was an investigation. There has to be something in the file. Maybe the file says, we've investigated all these things. There were no videotapes. There was no. I mean, okay, so release it. Show us the evidence. Show us the FBI report that says we went to the island, and we didn't find any videos, and there was no equipment there. We checked out Jeffrey Epstein's accounts, and there's no evidence of bribery. We checked out this, and by the way, here's how Epstein made money. None of that, right? It has to be somewhere, because the FBI has been investigating this for 25 years. So if they've investigated for 25 years, right, even before his conviction, his plea deal in Florida, okay, where's the file of that investigation for 25 years? And maybe they're legit privacy reasons, all kinds of other reasons they don't want to release it. My guess is what they'll do is they'll release some file that'll be heavily redacted. And then people will be upset because it's redacted, but you promised. And then, who knows where it goes from there. The whole thing is just it's a disaster, and they're digging themselves deeper into a hole. It's not like they are solving anything. Now, my advice, you shouldn't have partied with Jeffrey Epstein to begin with, but, come clean one way or the other. Come clean. Tell the truth. It's clear they're not telling the truth. It's not clear what the truth is, but what's obvious because of their contradictions and their misstatements and their, everything else that they're doing, that the truth is not something they're telling us. So what should they do? One way or the other, tell us the truth. Right? So it's, yeah, I mean, it really is an administration of clowns at so many different levels. Talk about clowns. Well, the clown in chief, of course, is Donald Trump. And Trump has been on a campaign, we've talked about this, basically to get Powell fired. And now he's the only guy who could fire him, but it's not clear he has the constitutional authority to fire him. But if anybody does, he has. I guess Congress could impeach Jerome Powell, but he hasn't committed an impeachable offense. But Trump is putting massive pressure on Powell to resign. And the things he's saying are just ludicrous, right? So the funniest one is, I mean, I think you probably can hear this if I play it. I'm not going to show the video. There's no point. It's very short. It's like 10 seconds.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. But he's a terrible...
I mean, you have to laugh. I mean, Biden was cognitively challenged. Biden had dementia. Was Biden more cognitively challenged than this guy? Like, who appointed Jerome Powell to be Fed chairman? Who raved about him? Who in a competition appointed him? You couldn't hear that? Let me see if I can raise the volume. It's all right. I'll raise the volume. I'll play it again for you.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. But
who appointed Powell? After, a competitive process. And basically, it came down to two people, Jerome Powell and, God, I mean, names will do me in. John Taylor from Stanford University. The two finalists were John Taylor from Taylor University, the author of the Taylor Rule, which is a rule by which you set monetary policy, and then Jerome Powell. And who did Trump pick? Trump picked Powell. And then he says, I was surprised he was appointed. How could he be surprised to be appointed when he was the one who did the appointing? Ann says, Trump got bad advice on several hires. Really, Ann? I mean, God, that is so pathetic. Sorry. It's never Trump's fault. Trump is an angel, a brilliant, amazing guy who just gets he just gets bad advice. The people around him are terrible. Really. After everything you've seen of Trump, you still hold the idea that it's his advice, the people who give it advice that are at fault, not Trump himself. No, he is this close to God, or for some of you, to John Galt, I guess. God help us. Can't, because there is no such thing, but it's Trump who appointed him, and he can't even remember that. And by the way, he complains about, Powell holding interest rates high right now. If you use a Taylor rule, I'm against having a Federal Reserve. I don't believe in central planning and setting interest rates from above. But if you're going to do it, I think it's much more objective to have a rule, to have some kind of rule. Milton Friedman proposed the rule, and John Taylor from Stanford has proposed the rule, and John Taylor's rule is not bad. Alan Greenspan, to a large extent, followed what seems like a Taylor rule for at least part of his tenure, and when he deviated from the Taylor rule, that's when he made big mistakes. So Taylor rule is probably about as good as you get. A Taylor rule basically takes into account the amount of money in the economy, velocity, the state of the economy, unemployment, stuff like that, and it spits out. It's a box. It's an algorithm. It spits out what the interest rate should be. It's much better than the discretion of the Fed chairman. It's much better than a bunch of 12 guys sitting around a table, and girls, I guess, these days, sitting around the table voting on what interest rate should be. Do a rule, make it automatic, and then markets can adjust because they have the inputs just like you do, and they can adjust and they can predict what you're going to do. By the way, so if you input it into the Taylor rule, all the data for today, the Taylor rule would generate an interest rate very similar to the interest rate that is currently the Fed is holding. And it could be that the Fed, at least maybe now, is actually, without letting anybody know, using it some kind of Taylor rule. So the two finalists that Trump had, Powell and Taylor, I mean, I, at the time, was a big advocate for Taylor. Big advocate for Taylor. And Taylor would have been such a better Fed chairman than Jerome Powell. And I've never liked Jerome Powell. I don't think Jerome Powell's a good guy. But Trump loved Jerome Powell. Why did he love Jerome Powell? Not because Chris Christie or somebody recommended him. He loved Jerome Powell because he thought, and in 2018, he had good reason to believe, that Jerome Powell would bend to Trump's will. He knew that John Taylor wouldn't, because John Taylor was an independent academic, and he had a Taylor rule, and he was going to follow the rule. Trump didn't want somebody following rules. He wants somebody following Trump. In 2018, when Jerome Powell started raising interest rates, Trump went into a hissy fit, put a lot of pressure on Powell, and Powell succumbed and lowered interest rates. Trump doesn't understand now why Powell is not doing what he wants him to do right now. Just by the way, about Trump appointments quickly, Trump's appointments in his first term were light years better than his appointment in this term. His secretaries of defense were far superior to the secretaries of defense today. Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Commerce Secretary, every single one of them, with exception maybe of energy. But even energy, he had Perry, the former governor of Texas, who's pretty good. Every single one of his appointments, almost every single one of them, was better than what he's made here. His appointments in his second term without those evil advisors are really, really, really bad. Really, really, really bad. Right? Remember, it was Trump who elevated Fauci into a decision-making position from a non-decision-making position. He gave him power during COVID. It was Trump. Trump did it. Not Christie, not his advisors. Trump did it. But no, never blame Trump for anything. He is, as we said, close to God. Anyway, today, Trump went on another rant about Powell, and there was a rumor that he actually had a letter written up firing Powell that he was circulating among Republicans in the Senate to see what they thought, and he was probably going to pull the trigger any minute now. That rumor went out. As soon as it hit Wall Street, stocks tumbled because they know what would happen if Trump appoints a new chairman of the Fed. And I'll tell you what will happen in a minute. Stocks tumbled, immediately, once they saw stocks going down sharply, they went down very quickly by 0.5%. I mean, very quickly. Immediately, Trump came out with a statement that he is not planning to fire Fed Chairman Powell. And the market recovered. I mean, it's a great test to see what would happen to the market if he fires Powell. Well, we know, because they just heard a whisper that might happen, boom, and then recovered completely once they got news that it wasn't happening. Trump has said that he wants interest rates to be lowered by 3%. Right now they're at 425, 450. He wants to lower them by 3%. Nobody's ever lowered interest rates that fast, that quickly in American history. But, if you lowered interest rates, given inflation at 2.7%, if you'd lowered inflation to, what would it be if you lower by 3% from 4.5, that's 1.5. You would have negative real interest rates. Negative real interest rates. Banks would immediately take the reserves they have at the Fed, which are now earning negative real interest rates, and start lending them to whoever wants them. You'd get a massive explosion in debt and in consumption, and you would juice the economy and set it up for a nice crash soon down the road. There's just no economic theory, there's no basis by which you lower interest rates by 3% all at once. Yeah, I mean, the market should set the rate. The market should set the rate, and the market does for the most part, right? What is the 30-year bond? 10-year bond? 10-year bond is 4.5. Yield curve right now is pretty flat. What's the 30-year bond? It's about 5. And so everything is around 4.5 in the shorter durations. So for the most part, the market is saying, yeah, maybe it's a little high. Maybe it should be around 4. And Jerome Powell is open to reducing rates. But it's certainly not 1.5%, because a market would never allow for negative real rates of return. A real rate of return is not real in the sense of reality. A real rate of return is that return you get after inflation. So the real rate of return is the return minus inflation. And if inflation right now is somewhere around 2.5 to 3%, then interest rates need to be above 3 to give you a positive real rate of return. But it's all whim. Even Taylor rule at least gives you predictability and visibility. But other countries have lower inflation than we do, and therefore they have lower interest rates than we do. So it's, interest rates are correlated to inflation. And the market is telling you that. German bonds are selling, 10-year bonds are selling at significant, this is the market, not government, significant lower rates by 1%, over 1%, than American bonds. Not because of anything, not because of what the European Central Bank is saying, but because people's estimate of risk of inflation in Europe versus the United States. And right now, the risk of inflation is much higher in the United States than it is in Europe, particularly given everything Trump is saying. The market is interpreting, whether you agree with him economically or not, the market is interpreting everything Trump is saying as inflationary. All right. So latest news is Powell's job is safe, at least until tomorrow. That's kind of a cool study. It's a cool study because it tells us exactly what we expected it would tell us. In September 2023, California passed a law that basically said, but by April 2024, the minimum wage in fast food industry, goes up to $20 an hour. So these academics did a study looking at the impact that that change had in April 2024 on employment in fast food restaurants in California, right? They look at quarterly census of employment and wages, and they say, we find that employment in California, fast food sector, declined by 2.7% relative to employment in fast food sector elsewhere in the United States from September 2023 through September 2024. Adjusting for so fast food employment was already going down before this was passed, right? Adjusting for pre-law trends, then the difference, the decline after the law is 3.2%. Our median estimate translates into a loss of 18,000 jobs in California fast food sector relative to the counterfactual. So basically the study is telling us something we know or should know happens. You raise the minimum wage, some people lose their jobs. Now, you could say it's only 18,000. It's only 18,000. It's not just that it's 18,000, it's 18,000 of the least qualified people. It's 18,000 of the people who would have the toughest time finding an alternative jobs. It's 18,000 of the people that are the poorest, the least educated, the most struggling, who need that fast food job in order to get a foot on the ladder. All right. I see there's more discussion about negative interest rates. And why do people buy negative interest rate bonds? There are a lot of reasons to do that they might do it. Because regulatory-wise, they have to buy government bonds. Banks, insurance companies, a lot of pension plans. They don't have many options in terms of their investment portfolios in many cases. They have to buy government bonds, and because they need liquidity, they often have to buy short duration government bonds, and sometimes the interest rates on those bonds are negative. Now, why don't they just hold cash? Well, because there's risk associated with holding cash. And a negative real rate of return is still higher than the negative associated with holding cash, because cash gets diluted because of inflation. And then there's also an issue of currencies. So plenty of reasons why some investors might buy negative interest rate bonds. I'll give you one example. Roland here has done a sticker in Swiss francs. But there was a period during in the post-financial crisis era, in the in the 20s, where interest rates in Switzerland were very negative. Like bonds were selling at negative interest rates. And at the same time, the Swiss franc was going up in value. And inside Switzerland, the franc was its purchasing power was increasing. Because for a variety of reasons, the Swiss central bank, in order to stop, what were they doing? They weren't buying Swiss francs. Were they selling francs? Anyway, the Swiss franc's value was going up in international markets, right? In terms of currencies. So even though so let's say you were a foreigner, it was worth buying a Swiss bond with a negative rate if you could then make a lot of money on holding Swiss francs. And again, the rate is negative only when you count for inflation. Now, in Switzerland, at that point, the rate was literally negative. But again, you were making more money on the Swiss franc than you were losing money on the interest rate. So it's complicated, and these mixed economies with government manipulation and the central bank constantly manipulating the currency and manipulating interest rates and manipulating debts, and bad things happen. It's not good. All right, here's another one of Economic 101 that you go, duh, what did you expect kind of stuff. But, these are semi-socialist or pretty blue areas, semi-socialist, I could call them, California and Seattle. And they don't follow the principles of economics. Anyway, if you remember, during COVID in 2020, Seattle passed a payroll tax targeting Amazon and other big businesses. It was called the Jumpstart Tax, a payroll tax on the city's biggest businesses and highest earners, including Amazon. What do you think would happen? What do you think would happen by 2025? These are all leftists, so we're now attacking leftists. I do that too on the show, So what do you think happened between 2020 and 2025? Given that they raised taxes on Amazon and big businesses in Seattle area. Well, this is the headline. This is catastrophic. Seattle payroll tax revenue is $47 million short as jobs leave city. Duh. If you tax something, you get less of it. If you subsidize something, you get more of it. Basic principle. If you're going to tax big companies, you get fewer big companies. If you're going to tax Amazon, Amazon is going to move some of its offices away. They're going to have fewer employees there. Econ 101. I mean, these people, before they pass these stupid laws, should just read an economic textbook. And maybe they don't care, which is the real reason, right? This is all. They are happy, just like Trump. They're happy to ignore economic reality in the name of the mission, in the name of the moral purpose. With Trump, it's not a moral purpose, but in the name of what they want to get done. So, tariffs don't work. Who cares? Who cares? Because it doesn't really matter. Because what we need is buy American. Buy American's bad for standard of living. Who said standard of living matters? Who said economics matters? It's patriotic to buy American. That's what matters. And if I have to force and cram patriotism down your throat, so be it. That's what I'm going to do. Taylor says that the Seattle law was passed when they actually had an economist on the council. A socialist economist who never really took seriously those lessons in Economics 101. When you tax things, you get less of them. This is Trump White House. This is an explanation by the White House of what is going on right now. This is Kevin Hassett, on CNBC. He says there's I think a lot of patriotism in the data. There's patriotism in the data. My theory, as an economist, he says, Hassett is an economist, of why that is that Americans, because of President Trump's leadership, have recognized that when they buy an American product, they not only get perhaps a better product, certainly a better product most of the time, but they're also making their community stronger. And that's why he says the tariffs are not causing prices to go up, because people are just not buying foreign stuff. Now, he's an economist. He's, by the way, the number one most likely person to become the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. And he calls himself an economist. So here's the trick. Yesterday, the Trump administration was telling us how much revenue they'd gotten from tariffs. Today, they're telling us people are not buying foreign goods anymore because they're real patriots. They've been inspired by Donald Trump to buy American. But wait a minute, if they buy American, then you're not getting any revenue from tariffs. Tariffs revenue requires Americans to buy foreign goods. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, I know, I know it's logic, and logic is tough for these guys. He's an economist after all. But you cannot have tariff income if people are not buying tariff goods. Don't know how that works. But this is the guy who's going to run the Federal Reserve in the future. The guy's a real, I mean, he's President Trump's chief economic advisor, and he's a real idiot. Now, it could be he's not an idiot. Here's a different interpretation of this. He's not an idiot. He's an economist. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly that white tariffs are bad and everything, and that what he's saying is nonsense. But he wants the job at the Federal Reserve. He really, really, really wants to be chairman of the Federal Reserve. And therefore, he's willing to say whatever needs to be said to make Trump happy, to convince Trump that he is with him. So he lies in order to get the job. I think that's probably more right. I think that's probably what's going on. I mean, the reality is that American producers are raising prices because they have less competition, because their competitors' prices have just gone up in nominal terms, right? In total, the price of the product plus the tariff has gone up. So now American companies can increase their prices and still be competitive. So this is why prices are going up. They're going up slowly, but they are going to go up, and they will go up. This is Howard Lutnick. This guy, I actually think, is an idiot. So I don't know how he was so successful, but everything I've seen of him suggests he's not smart. This guy's not smart. He says, for 80 years, America's leaders let countries put tariffs on our products, and we did nothing. Now, under President Trump's leadership, American consumers and businesses are going to be competing on a level playing field. Reality, most developed countries have significantly lower tariff rates and fewer non-tariff barriers than the United States has. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, he might also know he's lying. I don't think he cares. He's not an economist. He could believe his own BS. I don't know. But this is complete BS. And it just keeps coming, the BS. Keeps coming. J.D. Vance today. J.D. Vance tweets, so today the PPI came in. The PPI, the producer price index, another measure of inflation. And the PPI came in pretty low. And J.D. Vance writes, it's almost like the economics profession doesn't fully understand tariffs. And you go, okay, J.D. Vance is not stupid. But in this case, he's both lying and he's probably ignorant. Not stupid, but ignorant. Because the reality is this. Tariffs and taxes, since they are not retained by producers as revenue, are explicitly excluded from the PPI. So PPI does not measure prices. So PPI measures prices net of tariffs. Not the prices the consumer actually pays for the goods, but net of tariffs. So the PPI coming in low says nothing, nada, zero, zilch about tariffs. Maybe J.D. Vance, our really, really smart vice president, should go take another class in economics. Maybe. I'm just suggesting. At least before he tweets about economic data, maybe one of his advisors, I assume he has some who've got economics degrees, can update him on what the actual economic data means, what it actually is counting, what it actually presents. You notice today I'm doing economic myths of the left and the right. I'm an equally going after left and right. I know it's hard to believe. Remember those 50% tariffs on Brazil? They haven't gone into effect yet. They go into effect early August, if they go into effect at all. Anyway, Embraer Air, you probably all flown in an Embraer airplane. They are the third largest manufacturers of airplanes in the world after Boeing and Airbus. They manufacture a lot of the regional jets that fly in the United States. It turns out, I don't know if you knew this, but Embraer Air is a Brazilian company. And they've done very, very well in the United States. A lot of our largest airlines in the world in the United States, and they buy a lot of these regional jets from Embraer. Anyway, they just canceled their U.S. business plans because of the tariffs. We'll talk later, they say. They can't plan. They can't price anything. And if their jets are going to be priced at 50% more than what they were in the past, they're out of business. They're not going to sell. So they are completely strategically reorganizing in order to basically ignore the United States market and focus on other markets because they're priced out of the U.S. market. And the reality is, it's not like Boeing makes a competitor. I don't think Boeing makes a small regional jet. American Airlines won't have anybody. They can buy, maybe Airbus makes a small, I think 822, 220. I think that's an Airbus. But that's going to have 30% tariffs on it. So literally the United States is not priced out of the market for buying smaller jets or jets that are not named Boeing. Well, that'll help Boeing become more competitive and more focused on quality and focused on safety. The fact that the United States government is now protecting them from all competitors. That's a healthy move. And then, of course, Boeing is going to have trouble selling to other countries' airlines, because there's probably going to be a tariff on them. And so it'll become much easier, cheaper for European countries to buy from Airbus, and to buy, they'll probably cut a deal with Brazil, and they'll buy Embraers. And China's trying to develop their own, airplane company to compete with Boeing and Airbus. This is like tariffs are such a boon to China on this, because it basically, Chinese airlines now, it's going to be way too expensive for them to buy Boeing airplanes, which is what they typically bought. They're going to have to turn to their own domestic manufacturer and buy their stuff. And the Chinese now can offer Latin America, Africa, Europe, a competitor to Airbus, which is a Chinese plane. And basically, Boeing is isolated. So these tariffs, which you could imagine are there to help Boeing, are going to destroy Boeing's business, make them even worse than they are today. I love pointing out the sheer economic ignorance and stupidity of the leftists and the Trump administration. I mean, I don't love it because it's so sad. Here's an example, right? So the Trump administration has this big focus on, we want to build ships. We want to do shipbuilding. I mean, he came in saying this. Defense Department was saying this. Hegseth was saying this. One of the big problems in America is we've fallen behind China. We build almost no ships. They build huge numbers of ships. How do we compete with them? We can't build. It takes us forever to build ships for the Navy, but we have no commercial ships. There are no commercial ships built in the United States. And half the ships in the world, or more than half the ships in the world, are built in China. So we need to invest in the shipbuilding industry. So, there was talk in Congress and in the Defense Department, in the White House, we're gonna do shipbuilding. And indeed, the White House appointed a special office at the National Security Council focused on shipbuilding. Well, it seems that all that changed yesterday. The White House, or Trump, has closed the shipbuilding office at the National Security Council. Reuters reports that Ian Bennett, the president's special assistant for shipbuilding at the White House, has been fired. The favored candidates for provost and superintendent positions at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy have received denial notices, not hiring. At a recent USNI shipbuilding conference, it became clear major shipbuilding primes, these are the big shipbuilding companies who build for the Navy, are actively fighting plans to expand commercial shipping. They don't want commercial shipping. Partially, they don't want competitors. And partially, they realize what a futile business that would be. The Chinese, the Japanese, the South Koreans, who happen to be our allies, build great ships. America probably can't compete, certainly not on price. So the big shipbuilders who build for the Navy don't want a commercial ship industry. Sources inside the Pentagon say admirals and others in the Navy are digging in their heels on several key shipbuilding objectives. And then, this is the funny part, and the obvious part, really. Some Jones Act companies are now expressing their fear that building new ships could devalue their current fleets. How would that work? How would that work? Now, granted, this is really, really interesting, right? So here's the situation. The Jones Act basically says that in order to move anything from an American port to another American port directly, you have to use an American flagged, American crewed, an American built ship. Built ship. So if you want to move goods from Boston to Philadelphia, you have to have an American flagged, American crewed, American built ship. You want to move goods from Charlotte or Jacksonville to Puerto Rico, American built, American flagged ship. You want to take a cruise from California to Hawaii, has to be an American flagged, American built, American crewed ship. By the way, there's only one such cruise ship and only 72 such ship total. None of them, by the way, or maybe one, are LNG. So you can't move gas between Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, for example. So the Jones Act is a disaster on many, many fronts. And living in Puerto Rico, you really feel it. There are only 72 ships like this. Now, given that there are only 72 ships, and you've got to move stuff between American ports, and you've got to get to Alaska, and you've got to get to Hawaii, and you've got to get to Puerto Rico, they can charge a lot of money because there are only 72 of them. It's why Puerto Rico gets a lot of stuff, not from America, but from South America. It's cheaper. They don't have to use Jones Act ships. It's why Puerto Rico used to get gas, natural gas, from Russia and not from Texas, because there's no LNG ship to bring it from Texas that's certified by the Jones Act. So it's easier to get an LNG ship from Russia or now from other countries in South America. But we don't, in Puerto Rico, we do not get natural gas from America. We get very little from America. And the same in Hawaii. So the guys who own the 72 ships are like, we make excess profits right now because we're the only game in town. We don't want America to build more ships. If America builds more ships, there'll be more competition. And we'll have to lower prices. And our monopoly, granted us nicely by Congress through the Jones Act, will decrease in value. That's no good. You see how economics works? It works, always. You can't escape it. You cannot escape it. You want to build more merchant ships in America? Get rid of the Jones Act. That's one step. But while you have the Jones Act, the incentive is to build no more ships. There's supposedly a Ships Act going through Congress. Well, it's stalled in committee. It doesn't look like you're going to get any real progress on shipbuilding in America. The U.S. Coast Guard is slashing orders for cutters. The challenge is going to be that the new government in South Korea, which is tilting towards being much more favorable towards China than America, given America's craziness, and the guy's a leftist anyway, maybe the Koreans won't build America ships. Anyway, this one big national security project. This one big national security project doesn't look like it's happening. Doesn't look like it's happening. Our Navy not winning the war with the Houthis, and it sounds like Panama Canal. You remember Trump made a big deal out of Panama Canal being in Chinese hands and Chinese companies. It looks like that continues. It doesn't look like that changes. That is the news. As horrible as it actually is, that is the news this Wednesday, July 16th. All right. Somebody said Lutnick was... Lutnick sued Kanta. I thought he was the CEO of Kanta. Anyway, we'll put that aside. All right, we'll put Lutnick aside. We'll have to dig into biography another time. All right, a reminder, we are now moving to the Super Chat, so please come in with Super Chat questions. We covered the first hour. We got past the $250 for the first hour. We are now seeking another $232 to cover the second hour because we are in the second hour and we have a few questions. Let me thank Wes for his $50. Really, really appreciate that. Wes is like clockwork. Almost every show, $50 sticker. Really appreciate it. Let me thank Oil. Let me thank Jonathan Honing and Ryan and Roland. That incredibly valuable Swiss franc. And that Arum got me talking about the Swiss franc. It's important. Jonathan Honing again. Jonathan Honing 3 times. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you to all the stickers. You too can come in and support the show with a sticker, value for value. If you don't want to do it here on the show live, you can do it on Patreon or PayPal. Just go to Patreon, put in Yaron Brook Show, and become a monthly contributor. It's great. I love those. It's growing on Patreon. I'd like to see it grow a little faster. So all of you out there who are listening on the podcast right now and know you should be supporting the show because you listen so frequently, just go to patreon.com and do it. It's simple. It's easy. It's pretty quick. I know you have to put a credit card number in there. It's a little cumbersome. But yeah, you could probably do it with your Apple Pay or something. Just get it done and it's over with. You never have to think about it again. You know that you then are trading with the Yaron Brook Show value for value because this show is only possible because of you. Listeners like you. Couldn't happen without it. All right, we have 3 so far sponsors of the show. We have Alex Epstein, who is the world's expert on all things energy, all things power, electricity. Really, the things that are so crucial to our civilization right now. And the things that, interestingly enough, the Trump administration might be the one thing that they do well, or going to do well. So if you want to follow what's happening in D.C. with regard to energy, and if you want to get kind of the information about the issues that are important with regard to energy and what's not important, then you should follow Alex. alexepstein.substack.com, and sign up, and you know, you'll enjoy what you read. You'll get educated about these topics, and you'll become a much better communicator of these ideas. Because after all, we all want to change the world, right? The Iron Man Institute has announced that next year's OCON, the Objectives Conference, which I speak at every year, no guarantee next year, but every year, is going to be in New Orleans in late June, not over the 4th of July weekend, in late June. And they are offering a 30% discount to anybody who registers now. And on top of that, they're offering an extra 10% discount to anybody who uses the Yaron Brook Show discount code, which is 26YBS10, 10 representing the fact that you get a 10% discount above and beyond the 30. So it works out to be like 37% discount. I mean, it's almost half price, and you get to go to OCON, and they have a pretty generous cancellation policy. So if you sign up now and you change your mind, you can probably get your money back. So check out the cancellation policy before you sign up. So there's very low risk in signing up now, locking in the big discount, and hopefully attending, because that'll be a blast. Imagine 1,000 people at OCON in New Orleans, and imagine almost all of them are listeners to your Yaron Brook Show. I mean, that would be a massive hangout. That would be so much fun to meet all of you. And maybe I can organize something. This year we couldn't organize something in Boston. They changed the rules on me a little bit, but next year we could do that. Now, if you're a student, the rates are unbelievably low. So I think they're pretty low even for adults, really. But if you're a student, it's unbelievably low. So go do it. But even if you're not a student, sign up. The rates are low once you take into account the 37% discount. Lincoln says he bought his ticket for $210. That's for, what, 5 days of content? 5 full days of content? That is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, it used to be thousands of dollars to attend OCON. And Lincoln just got it for $210. So you guys should do the same. Don't miss out. It's going to be a great conference. RDF, thank you for the sticker. Gail, thank you for the sticker. And then finally, Hendershot Wealth Management. If you have, and some of you suggested that you do, so you should at least contact me and find out more about this. But there's a real possibility, there's a real option here of getting into a product that actually saves you a huge amount of money on your capital gains taxes. Now, granted, it has to be a large sum. It has to be 7 figures. But if it's 7, 8 figures, then you could save huge amounts of money on your capital gains with a particular product that you can get educated about and then decide if you want to invest in through Hendershot Wealth Management. So if you're interested, check out the video on my YouTube channel. It's on, if you look at the playlists, it pops up. But also, you can go to hendershotwealthmanagement.com/YBS, hendershotwealthmanagement.com, /YBS, and read up about it right there. It's actually not that. It's Hendershot Wealth, not management. hendershotwealth.com/YBS, and get more information about this product there. It's focused on capital gains. If you're about to sell a business, or you plan to sell a business in the future, it's never too early to plan for that and to make sure you're not stuck with a massive capital gains tax bill. All right, let's go in here with the super chats. Let's start with Hopper Campbell. In countries with minimum levels of economic freedom, can you still become a millionaire? Even in heavily taxed and regulated France, there are new millionaires being produced every year. Is that the case in South American countries as well? Yes, I mean, absolutely. And in China, there's probably more millionaires created a day than anywhere else. There are very few countries where you just cannot become a millionaire. Now, in some countries, the more the government intervenes, the more the government is involved, the more likely it is that in order to become a billionaire or a millionaire, you have to, maybe bribe or lobby or find a way for the government to treat you well, right? So it's suspicious. If it's a truly heavily regulated, North Korea, the guy's a millionaire. He's in with the generals, right? And usually the new millionaires are the generals. But in a semi-free country, and certainly France is a semi-free country, and certainly Latin America, there are plenty of opportunities. Or, Thailand or Indonesia, Malaysia, all these countries. Yeah, there are plenty of opportunities to become millionaires through all kinds of entrepreneurial activity. The first millionaire in China, what he did? Literally, the first millionaire in China in the late 70s, early 80s, was a guy who sold sunflower seeds. And he had a recipe for selling in the street on a cart sunflower seeds. And he basically franchised it. I mean, not literally franchised it, and there weren't franchise-like agreements in those days. But basically, he had people in various parts of China using his recipe to make these sunflower seeds, and he became a millionaire. And indeed, there were people in the Chinese administration who wanted to get rid of him. And Deng Xiaoping said no. Deng said, no, we want more millionaires. We don't want less. But you can become a millionaire in a variety of different businesses. There are all kinds of human needs. And if you can find a way to provide a great service, a product that people learn to really want, and you can scale it, you can get it to a lot of people, you can become rich even in a relatively statist country. Even today in America, I know some of you are so pessimistic, you could become. The rational IP. Working in IP, intellectual property, I assume, lets me engage with diverse industries and marvel at the products of the rational mind. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. In my view, IP law aligns with objectivism and capitalism very well. The anti-IP movement is absurd and deeply unjust to creators. Great show. Yeah, you are absolutely right. The founders of this country established IP law in the Constitution. They understood the importance of patents and generally intellectual property. It is crucial to innovation and advance and progress. And don't let some of these economists, even people I respect who've turned to anti-IP, they just base their assumptions on really distorted economics and distorted views and distortion of human incentives. But yes, IP law is crucial. It's a real property. And if you understand Ayn Rand's view, all property is ultimately originates in the human mind. So there's nothing unique about intellectual property in that sense. Adam Ossoff is the best out there on this issue. So I encourage you to read his work and to follow him. He's at George Mason University, and I've had him on the show at least twice. We'll have him again. But yes, IP law, sadly, but not surprisingly, many libertarians against it. And certainly the left is very against it, and ultimately haters of capitalism against intellectual property. And I consider many libertarians haters of capitalism. Mary Aline, thank you for the sticker. You too can help us reach our goal. We're not that far, but we need your help. We need your help by either coming in and asking a Super Chat question or doing a Super Chat sticker, but expressing your financial support of the show to help us keep us going. Mike says, are the people pushing a higher minimum wage in fast food the same people who invest in automation? No, I mean, I don't think so. I maybe, but I think it's much more driven by altruism. It's much more driven by the short-term perceptual level mentality of helping the poor, or at least having the poor believe you're helping the poor. So some people, I think, are smart enough to understand that what they're doing is not helping the poor, but it doesn't matter. The poor think it's helping them, so they get the votes. So I don't think it's as sophisticated as somebody is making money off of this. Maybe some, but that's not the dominant push. The dominant push is from a leftist intellectual perspective, i.e. altruism. The sacrifice of businesses to low-income people. And if some people have to lose their jobs because of it, so be it. Other people are now earning more. And on net, that's a positive in their view. And we'll just give welfare to the people who lost their jobs. All right. Anonymous user says, remember to like and subscribe to the Yaron Brook Show. Yes, if you're not a subscriber, please, please, please subscribe. We're trying to make 40,000. We're very close. I hope we manage to do it this month. There are no guarantees. It requires people to actually subscribe. So please, please, please subscribe. And like the show. The liking the show helps because the algorithm likes likes. So if you like the show, the algorithm elevates the show and makes it available to more people, and more people discover us, subscribe, support us, and spread the word, and we slowly chip away at the conventional wisdom, both on the left and on the right. All right, Kim says, if you accept Bitcoin via PayPal, will you transfer to US dollars or keep as Bitcoin? I thought it wasn't real money. I mean, it's not, but it is a speculative asset at this point, right? So I wouldn't mind keeping a little bit of Bitcoin. It might go to $1 million. I don't know. I don't think it will, but if it's small, I might keep it. Now, if it's a big amount, I'll probably cash out because I need the cash. So, my tendency is to just sell. I live off of this money. But I might hold the Bitcoin just because it's a speculative asset and it might go up. It's very volatile. Volatility is good in that context. Look at that. I just lost a subscriber. What did I say? I told you guys to subscribe, not to unsubscribe. God, I can't win. All right. Not your average algorithm. Is there anything not absolute? I don't know what you mean by absolute. What do you mean by absolute? You don't know everything for certainty. So in that sense, it's not absolute because you don't know everything with certainty. But ultimately, everything is what it is. So ultimately, everything is an absolute, but that doesn't mean we know it as an absolute. And then a lot of what decisions we have to make in life, we don't face situations where where we know with certainty. A lot of decisions we have to make, we have to use in one way or another. We have to think about in terms of probability, in terms of what's the chances of this versus that. And in that sense, it's not absolute, right? What is it going to rain tomorrow in Puerto Rico? I mean, the likelihood is very, very high, but is it certain? Is it absolute that it's going to rain? No. What is absolute about rain in Puerto Rico tomorrow is that it's a very high likelihood. That's an absolute. All right, Michael says, the fact that Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens sit-down interview received millions of views means John Dewey's educational model has successfully disminded an entire generation. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The two creepy, weird, lying, I mean, real creeps, get that much attention and are followed by that many people, are liked by that many people, is not positive for this culture, and certainly suggests that Dewey's progressive education agenda is destroying the minds of Americans. Sadly, people of all ages watch that interview, although mostly I'm sure it's young people. But that is a part of the right that is growing, and it's a very scary part of the right. Michael, were Germans in 1930s Germany as mindless and juvenile as Americans today? I don't know. Probably not. But a certain segment of the population clearly was. But yes, Americans right now are unbelievably mindless and juvenile. Starting from the top, by the way. Liam, two-part question. I find it uncanny when people refer to sex as fun. Amusement parks are fun. Sex is a profound spiritual experience, an intimate connection with another human being, like no other action. Does describing sex as fun nihilistically cheapen its significance in human life? I mean, it can, but it doesn't have to. I consider sex both profound and fun. It has aspects of fun. And I think it should be viewed as fun. I think that's what keeps part of the profound nature alive, right? So I really do think that having sex, if you have sex with the same person for years and years and years and years, you have to introduce some elements of fun, of variety, of interest, of playfulness, in order to sustain that intimacy and to allow it to keep being as profound. So I don't see a conflict. I see the two as reinforcing one another. And you know, you can laugh during sex. There's a lot of sex evokes a lot of emotions, and being intimate with somebody can evoke many emotions. And part of what's good about sex, when it's good and when it's done with the right person, is kind of the emotional openness you can have with the other person, and everything that is going on, you know, everything that is pleasurable, everything that is everything, the whole connection and everything is a profound experience. But it's also laughing during sex is not good. I don't agree. Why not? I mean, sometimes you find yourself during sex in funny positions or situations, and it makes sense to laugh. I mean, you guys are a little too serious. I'm worried about you guys. It can so I see them as complementing. Now, sure, some people who are promiscuous, who are having sex, if you will, just for fun, and there is a fun element, but that's all they focus on, all they care about, are missing out. They're really missing out. But I don't think it's nihilistic. I think it's sad that they're missing out on the other aspects of it. But I definitely think sex should be playful. God, I don't really have good words for it, but it shouldn't be, okay, now we're doing something profound. Let's get serious. There's an aspect of that, but there's also an aspect of lots of other things. Now we're doing something unbelievably enjoyable. And as a consequence, fun. So, yeah, that's my view. Jeremy, thank you. Thank you for the membership gifting. I mean, I don't know if any of you have heard Leonard Peikoff's Q&A on sex, love, and romance that he did, I don't know, it must have been the late 90s. I remember exactly where he did it, when he did it. I hired him to do it, and it was in Arizona, at a nice resort in Arizona. I remember it well. Anyway, listen to that Q&A, because I think that it gives you that sense of, playfulness, fun, and profound all together, mixed in, and good. And I do think Anne says Nathaniel Brandon made it like a religious experience, at least per Barbara's account. And I think Nathaniel did a lot of things. I think he made generally objectivism more like a religion. I think the most harm done to objectivism was Nathaniel's attitude. And what's sad is that Ayn Rand didn't see it and stop it. But Nathaniel's attitude and the way he organized the objectivist movement and what he projected in terms of what it meant to be an objectivist to people during the 1960s, I think he did a lot of damage. And some of that he did by, making it seem more like a religion than it is. And, so Nathaniel not only lied to himself and to others and to Ayn Rand and faked his objectivism, but also his whole attitude to objectivism was dogmatic, and he projected that onto everybody else and demanded that kind of dogmatism from others, and I think gave it a tinge of religion, which I think to some extent people carried and have not been able to completely shake off. And he's really bad. Really, really bad. All right, Michael says, I'm not sure which is dumber policy, minimum wage or tariffs. Yeah, it depends on how high the minimum wage is. They're both really super dumb, and they're both policies that the economics profession understands the consequence of pretty well. I'd say there's less controversy about tariffs than there is about minimum wage. Minimum wage is, the impact of minimum wage is a little trickier to figure out. A little. Crypto, the Brazilian comedian Leo Lins was sentenced to 8 years in prison for offensive jokes about minorities in his stand-up show. The court ruled his remarks crossed the line from comedy to hate speech. I mean, that's the problem. There should be no such category as hate speech from a legal perspective. Hate speech, to the extent there is such a thing, expressing hate, saying hateful things about people, should be 100% protected speech. And you've got to worry about any country that has hate speech laws. Brazil has them, so do almost all European countries have them. The UK has them. Luckily, the United States doesn't have them yet because we have a First Amendment that protects it. But that is really, really, really horrible. 8 years in jail is just horrific when there's no crime here. Zero, zilch, nothing, nada. Horrible. Sorry to hear that. Subkasky, Lutnick was Epstein's neighbor. All right, not sure what that matters. Esoteric Dichotomy, hey, Yaron, what are your views on loneliness epidemic? Do adults need friends, camaraderie? Have things gotten less friendly, more isolated? Yeah, I think they have. I think there is, the empirics are pretty clear, I think, that there is a lot of people feel lonely, particularly when they get older. A lot of people are alone and they don't like it. People do benefit enormously from friends, from loving relationships, from good family relationships, not all family relationships, good ones. People benefit from human relationships. Human relationships are an incredible value. And when you don't have them at all, it is difficult. It's particularly if you don't have a loved one, if you don't have a romantic relationship. Life is much more difficult. Friendship is a real value to be pursued, a value to be achieved. Now, nobody views it that way. The main problem with Americans today is their passivity. when it regards social activities. Generally, social activities are way down. Parties are down. Sex is down. Socializing is down. Now, I think that has to do with passivity. That has to do with a lack of personal responsibility and focus on one's own well-being and focus on one's own value. They're not being egoistic enough, right? They're not being egoistic enough. And I think that does a huge amount of damage. And I think that's the source of it. I do think that when people went to church more often, they had more friends. The church stuff didn't do them any good, but having friends probably did good. Now they don't go to church, which is good, but they haven't replaced it with any other kind of social environment. And they are antisocial. And I think this is altruism causes you to be antisocial because if you have friends, you have to sacrifice for them. If you interconnect with other people, you have to sacrifice for them. So, so I think that having friends is a good thing. Being lonely is not a good thing. And people bring loneliness upon themselves by not being active pursuers of values. If you have a hobby, then you can find friends who share the hobby with you. There are all kinds of ways to do this. All kinds of ways to do this. All right. Mirko from Madonna, Italy. Can't wait to meet you here. I talked about you to a unicorn of Silicon Valley. Thank you. I hope he becomes one of your followers. Value for value. P.S. Planning cool day for you. Really looking forward to it. We need, I guess we should schedule a date, whether it should be a weekend or, tell me what dates work for you so I can start thinking about that as well. So probably calendar it in. Thank you, Mirko. Really looking forward to it. Hector, 5 years ago, I heard you on Lex's show and left behind, this is pretty amazing, left behind Che Guevara, Castro, and those old beliefs. That's a pretty big leap. Reading Ayn Rand changed my whole perspective. Thank you for helping me break free. Cheers, Yaron. Cheers, Hector. Thank you. I mean, that's great to hear. Amazing that I could get you from Che Guevara to Ayn Rand. I'm really happy, and good for you for having that level of honesty to be able to see the truth and embrace it. Gail, many Nordic countries are banning the burka. Do you think that is irrational and moral? Look, I think in normal times, in rational societies, it would not. But if we take into account that we're at war with Islamism, if we're at war with them, and I think we are, then we should declare war and declare the symbols of Islamism outlawed. And I think the burqa is a symbol of Islamism. And I think it should be outlawed. It's the same with Islamic immigration, right? We need to identify that there's an enemy. We need to be explicit about the threat and then ban it. Not ban it because we're banning speech. Ban it because it's speech of the enemy. And that we don't allow. And I think a lot of countries are suffering from the Islamists for a variety of reasons. That some of them have to do with themselves, but a lot of it has to do with the Islamists themselves. But mostly it has to do with the West not taking this threat seriously. And they need to start getting serious about dealing with it. And that means declaring war on it. And maybe part of that declaration of war is banning the burqa. But you'd have to have a comprehensive strategy. It can't be just one thing about banning a form of dress. It has to be more than that. Eyal says, Yaron, what's the book behind you? Is it about logic? Which one? I've got a lot of books behind me. The one that's called Logic? These two are about logic. They were recommended by Leonard Peikoff. This one is by Lionel Ruby. It's called Logic and Introduction. And this one is an introduction to logic by H.W.B. Joseph. And it's got that cover. Those are the two books on logic. I think they were both recommended by Leonard Peikoff years ago. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you to all the super chatters. I appreciate it. Thank you for all of you being here. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. That really helps. If you just do that thumbs up thing, that helps with the algorithm. Don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, to subscribe to the show. Really, you'll get announcements on the show. And again, it will really help get the word out there. Don't forget to comment. And don't forget, if you want to support the show, patreon.com, Yaron Brook Show, and become a monthly supporter. I will see you all tomorrow. I think tomorrow's show is at 4 p.m. Yes, I think it's at 4 p.m. Talk to you then. Bye, everybody.